Hello and welcome to the Between the Frames podcast. Rob, what's Between the Frames?
Between the Frames is a podcast about movies and television, and it's called that because what's between the frame? Nothing.
That's good to know. We have absolutely nothing to say today. We're talking about the topic of New York, LA, and Chicago. Succession, the final episode has come out. So much has happened. It's called With Open Eyes, episode 39, and we don't agree on it. So I'm excited to talk about it, kind of break it down what you thought. Take it off, Rob. What did you think of this episode?
Well, I loved it. I thought it was a perfect ending. It left you feeling shocked and betrayed, like the characters. And in the end, I thought it thematically made sense with the rest of the show. So, how about you, Vasishta?
I thought it was trending towards an ending that I would have really loved. And I think it settled for a good ending. I think it's carried by the fact that the production is so high quality. The dialogue's really good. The actors are really good. The director's obviously doing a very good job. But I think the story decisions are good up until the last decision when they go off the rails and it's a miss. Because I think you would agree with this. I mean, you mentioned thematically the ending, right?
Mhm.
It's a tragedy. I mean, the whole thing is a tragedy, and I understood that. But I think the problem is that it lacks the layers of irony that a tragedy has. I think Kendall could have won, or like he thinks he won, but in reality he lost. Instead, he just loses, and he knows he loses, and he loses. So it's like it lacks like the dramatic irony of a tragedy, and I think it makes a lot of the things that happen earlier in the episode with different characters fall flat when Kendall doesn't really get the throne. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
So, I mean, a theme throughout this entire show is Kendall has incompetent moments, but somehow they end up being successful. You go back to earlier in the season with the Living Plus scene where it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, but somehow he comes victorious just through blind luck with Madsen's character making that tweet. I mean, we've seen throughout the series he loses to his father. He has career blunders again and again. I mean, think about the third season with his whole woke kind of I'm a woke guy thing just slowly falling apart. So for like the last two episodes, you're seeing Kendall arrange the pieces for his victory. They want the audience to feel like Kendall's going to triumph victorious at last, but really in true Kendall fashion he's going to lose, and I think it's justified for him to lose. He's not like a smart character by any means. He's not like a necessarily a good strategist.
No, no. I mean, if you get into the argument about who's actually the more competent CEO, I mean, like obviously it's not him, but that's not really what the show to me is about. See, I agree with you. I agree with what you're saying dramatically. Like, right, he has to lose. I totally agree he has to lose. He has to have the biggest defeat of all, which is that he thinks he won. That's the tragedy, that he has that full mental breakdown with his siblings and then he actually wins, but he loses them and he's actually sitting on a company that's just going to go down in flames and he's sitting on a throne of ashes. I mean, that's like the perfect ending to me. And it also kind of the fact that he doesn't win the throne, it invalidates a lot of dramatic stakes, in my opinion. Greg freaking betrays Tom and it has no consequence because Tom wins anyway. And then Tom doesn't care. I don't get the point of that really. And the whole season, honestly, the whole show, but this season specifically, it's been about the siblings all compete. Every episode is like a competition between them to see who's going to perform the best to be CEO. And if none of them
Mm.
win it, it's just like okay, well there's no point at all. That's my thing. It like makes the whole show kind of pointless. Which I mean, maybe that's the point.
Yeah, well, it's
Maybe
like,
it is, but that's not a fun. It's not like a good ending to me.
I mean, I think the whole series they're competing for their father's attention and respect, and he never gives it to any of them down to the final episode where he says, "You are not serious people." They try to fight that. They try to fight the notion that no, they have a place in this world. You know, their father is almost wrong. And the final episode is no, Logan was right. You are
I know.
all
Doesn't it suck though? It's like, oh yeah,
no,
I guess you guys
I
could
think
do
that's
something
great.
about it. Like
The characters do not do any work throughout the entire series. The only
they
one that
do.
does any work is Tom and Greg.
Well, I'm not real. I'm talking about character work. Phil's
Yeah.
definitely like going on an arc through the show. Like I definitely think that's true. I mean,
And
that's a in the last episode, you see them all come together and they have this whole thing, and this they meet at their mom's place, and it's like, all right, sue me. I like that. I liked that they figured it out. It would have been a good ending. All Shiv had to do, everything was correct. Shiv walks out the room, everything is correct. All that they had to do was that when Kendall beats up Roman and then Shiv walks out the room, he walks into the boardroom and he thinks he lost. And then he actually wins and he's cheering. And then the last scene is him sitting by himself, like Logan, with no friends or family, completely alone. That would have been perfect. But
sure.
I can only say that so many times, I guess. I guess we don't see eye to eye.
I mean, you
Still
have
a
to,
good ending.
and also keep in mind that when Kendall loses, he looks like he's about to jump into the river, but he's also just become a billionaire. So he
But
just,
he was a billionaire at the start, to be fair.
yeah, but now it's real. So I feel bad for Stewie. Stewie always gets screwed over by Kendall.
Oh
And
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it I personally like the point. I think you're the ending of Kendall losing everything and becoming like his father's is the safer ending.
Agree it's the safer ending because I think they wrote the whole series to be that way. It's like you did all
No,
the hard work. All you have to do is it's a layup. It's easy. It's a layup. You got it. You guys are so good at writing.
they're so like after Logan dies, they're all disastrous in their own ways. Like none of them can lead the company, and they're still fighting each other. Roman with firing of two senior executives, Kendall and Roman with the election, Shiv against the election. I think they're building it up throughout the series. I also disagree on Greg being just okay in the end. This isn't Game of Thrones. Tom has an understanding that Greg was just trying to look out for his best interest.
I thought that's like the whole thing. They call him Judas. He actively almost fucked the entire deal for them. So, which is good. It's totally what he should have done. I just think there should have been follow through on it all the way. Like I think it would have been even forget the Kendall thing. Even if they kept the exact ending, when Greg walks up to Tom, it should have been the same thing that he did to Hugo, where Hugo walks up to him and he just completely ignores him. Tom should have done the same thing to Greg. That would have been a really good ending for him.
Nah, I think Tom's actually built himself up over the course of the series, and I think he's understanding of Greg's position. I mean, from Greg's perspective, he wasn't even sure he was going to keep a job if the merger went through, right?
It makes complete sense, but yeah, I guess we don't exactly agree. I guess I would like to ask you what you thought of each character's ending specifically. I mean, obviously you agree with Kendall, but Roman, Shiv.
Well, I actually read something today. I thought was interesting. Roman's t-shirt on the beach.
Yeah, it
It's
was weird to
just
see him dressed normally, actually. It was
it's
kind of
it's
weird.
actually like a child's extra large t-shirt from Walmart, which I thought, he's kind of becoming more infantile in his last episode. He
Yeah.
just completely broken down. I mean, I think Roman's character expresses the reason why I like the finale so much, which was him just going, we are bullshit. He's saying we are exactly what our father said. And we see the series through the eyes of most of the characters in the show. We identify with Kendall's arc the most naturally because,
He has ambition.
yeah, I mean, we start with him, and then we see Greg, right, as our second character in the beginning of the series. I mean, the point was true, right? I mean, they never had anything at stake really throughout the entire series.
They had dramatic stake. But that's what I'm saying. He says we're bullshit. I hated that. So it's like, all right, well then what was the point of the show? You could have ended after when Kendall fails the first time in season one. You could have just ended the show right there. Nothing changed. Everyone was the same. No one accomplished anything, really. I mean, I guess Tom rose. They didn't change people at all and ended up in the exact same
Um,
spot. So it's like, what was the point?
well, I think Kendall actually the tragedy of Kendall is he became like his father, but he has none of the power.
Exactly. And I think
No, he
it's
doesn't have the power though. So that's more like it's not that
sure.
he has he doesn't have his family any from his actions, and he also doesn't have the power from before, whereas like he is going to cut his family out because he's going to cut Shiv out for what she did. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess. I just feel like I watched Romeo and Juliet, and Romeo tripped before getting Juliet and just died. It's like, and then Juliet shot herself in the head. I'm like, okay, well, it is a tragedy, I guess. You're missing the twist, I think. But sorry, you would talk about Shiv if you want to talk about Shiv. She has probably the most to talk about.
I mean, Shiv, I thought was fairly well done too. Her thematic arc of this season was, can she get back with Tom after the betrayal in season 3? And honestly, he's not really open to it. He's done for the most part, I'd say.
Yeah, I don't know what your read is on this, but I think a lot of people, I think people tend to view the characters as more calculating than I would. Tom is pretty emotionally withholding in the last episode and for a good chunk of the last season. But I mean, I wouldn't take that as like he was out doing that on purpose to manipulate Shiv. I kind of just took it as like,
No, he wasn't. No, he was sincere, which makes it worse. He's not playing a game against Shiv. This is, she wants a relationship with Tom, and Tom's not really open to it. And keep in mind she's also pregnant. You factor that in, and then Kendall, he's almost gloating after the meal for a king scene, right? He's in Logan's office, he's putting his legs up on the desk, he's saying idiotic crap, carpe the diem. He says all these stupid things. He thinks he's got it, and I think, yeah, I mean, the last scene with Shiv where she's trying to justify her betrayal is, I mean, she's not supposed to be logical. And it's also an attempt to keep him as an uncle to her new future child. So I don't
yeah,
know.
but he won't now. He definitely isn't now.
Well,
Um,
no, but she's trying to grasp onto anything she possibly can. And what's the worst thing? It's him killing someone. So
oh,
yeah.
true. Yeah, but I think it's all just boils down to the fact that she can't stand the fact that he would win. At the
Oh
end of
no,
the
no,
day,
that's
like that's all it is. I mean, because she knew about all that before. I mean, she agreed to it knowing all that information.
it's again, that's exactly the point. Like, it's not like a valid argument. It's just one she's making. I mean, think about it. Her husband was 2 seasons ago was about to go to prison for covering up rapes on a cruise ship. So I mean, it's not like he is necessarily morally superior. So
I was sort of struck by the fact that Shiv ends up like her mom, and in a weird way though, because I guess you don't fully know Caroline, the mom's backstory, but it did seem like Caroline climbed to her position, where Shiv fell from a higher position to a lower, seemingly gave up a lot of power to come in there to be that position. She went from having a board vote to like barefoot and pregnant and just married to the CEO. It's like a pretty strong statement on her feministy arc. I mean, a lot of her story is about the fact that she's a woman who's not taken seriously because she's a woman. I think that gives her a weird complex. And in the end, she kind of goes for it, gives into it, because I mean, she marries Tom originally, at least according to Logan, because he's not threatening at all. But then when he does become a powerful man like Logan, she completely gives up, is like submissive to him. So it's like it's really Freudian. Freud would just love this show, honestly.
fair. I think so. Like, I saw like the comments about her being like her mother. Again, the thing everyone keeps forgetting, she is still a billionaire. Like, she is sold out. She
Right.
is a billionaire at the end of this, right? Her stocks are sold.
But she has no power.
She didn't have power really before, though. She had a board seat.
She was going for it though. I think the point is that she was trying to get power before. She
Oh,
seems resigned to
sure.
the fact that it's just going to be through Tom and the baby.
Sure. But I mean, she's doing it for it's the first thing she's done for their marriage and throughout the entire series.
Yeah, if you want to view it that way. No, I mean, I guess it is up to interpretation, I suppose. I would still view it as just kind of selfishly. Like she just didn't care, and that's where she ended up. But yeah, yeah. I mean, so now that it's all over, whole series, what would you say? Now that you know the ending and the length.
I plan on rewatching it this summer at some point. I think they stuck the landing. I don't think the series was for nothing. I mean, despite probably the worst critiques of the ending, it still leagues ahead of how Game of Thrones ended.
Oh
So
yeah, I mean it's not. Yeah. I mean that's like an insult to the writers. You're like put it in the same sentence.
this summer, they're actually releasing the production scripts for the series, all 4 seasons, which it's not just what's on screen, it's what they cut out, what they altered on set. I'm planning on getting those and reading them with the next watch through. So I think the last season will be even more well received in a binge format. And that's because every like episode is like a day, essentially. And I think, like for us, it's been almost 2 months since Logan Roy died, but in a binge format, that time period actually it feels faster moving, right? And the characters not necessarily being as rational, I think would resonate better. How about you?
I mean, I agree with you that the ending is still good for all my
Yeah.
criticisms. Like, it's definitely not a bad ending. I personally think the rewatch will be good, but worse for the ending. I think it'll be a little worse
Really?
because, yeah, and I thought this before, even knowing like, I mean, I felt this way before, but probably a season too long as a show. I think it probably actually could have been 3 seasons. I think there's one extra season in there of
Mhm.
content because the show does have a habit of kind of spinning its wheels, which is kind of a theme of the show. Now, especially now that you know the ending. Yeah, I think it could have probably trimmed one season, but still pretty lean, pretty damn good. Definitely rewatchable. I think it will be less remembered because of the ending, but it will still be a good show. It's definitely an acting masterclass. I definitely think that they'll win some awards, the show. But it's kind of dangerous for them as a cast because I kind of think these are like, what would you say, like iconic roles.
Well, especially for Jeremy Strong. I mean, you say that until they have another career defining performance, right? And then it immediately goes away.
I also think that they have to do this. They have to do it. They have to adapt this to a play. It's a play. I mean, honestly, it's a play. This is the most play TV show ever, and they could make it so much leaner. I think it would be way better as a play, honestly.
I mean, the writing style is perfect for that.
That was our review of Succession, last episode, and a brief little chat about the entire show. And tune in next week for the next bullshit we talk about. We'll see.